Michael came back that evening as promised, Lewis in tow, to Claire's annoyance. They had teleported into the hallway with a pop, and Michael unlocked and entered their room without even knocking. Again.
"My name is Stephen,"
Stephen said brightly. Michael and Lewis were both jolted so hard that Michael sat down on the chair in the room.
"He knows like 10 words now,"
Claire said proudly, surprised that Stephen had spoken instead of screamed, because even she had jumped.
"And he has a name,"
Michael said with wide eyes. Claire waved Stephen on, and Stephen happily repeated,
"My name is Stephen."
And Claire gave him a grape.
"I've been teaching him how to say that all night. And I told him about McCool, too. Stephen can sense magic, apparently. Oh, maybe that's why he didn't jump. He knew they were there before I did. He says he knows McCool is a dark god, but he seems okay with it, open to it. I think mostly 'cause we're nice to him."
"That's how it come by most people," Michael admitted in a bewildered mumble. "So he could talk the whole time?"
"He was too scared to, and he didn't hear any of us speak Orcish. He didn't know to try."
"He doesn't even know Orcish, as far as I've heard."
"He knows more than you."
"Yeah, and I speak Draconic, Common, Abyssal, Infernal, and a bit of Elvish instead." The quarter dragon laughed as he turned to study his polished claws, admiring his own reflection in them with his always cocky smile.
"You only know Abyssal and Infernal, Cousin Michael."
"And what do you know? Common, and that's all?"
"You're gonna forget him when he gets bored of you."
"You little—"
"Shut up,"
Elder Michael commanded. Lewis opened his mouth to spout off something else, but Michael continued over him, finding his eyes widening a bit as he thought out loud.
"I've seen visions from McCool of him talking to people. If he can innately sense magic, then there must be something special about him. Perhaps the Lord knew that. Maybe finding him wasn't so by chance. McCool is so very interested in him. With the wave he's already made in town, we need to make sure that he isn't going to bring something upon us. Therefore, we need to know everything about him before the locals do. If they do."
Claire didn't know how to feel about that. That McCool himself was interested in Stephen, and apparently Michael hadn't been happy about that until just now. She was still very put off by Michael's tone of voice now and when he'd dropped off the book.
"To be clear, Claire, I cannot do this all the time. I have acquired, while we were in town, one spell to increase his intelligence, but that only lasts an hour. And then I have one where we can all understand each other no matter what language we're speaking in, and that one lasts about 10 minutes, so I will have to cast it over and over again. There is also one more I just thought to pick up last minute where I can calm his emotions because he seems to be held back by fear, which I can only do once or twice. So in combination, it's probably just going to end up being him spewing his internal monologue. It may take several tries to get the mix of spells right."
"Oh, okay," Claire said with a flushed gasp. Michael was pleased she was buying that. He already knew all the spells he was about to use, but he didn't want to put up with her asking him to cast them all the time. He was already annoyed at having to save up his magic all day just to do this. "Tell him I'm going to cast spells on him." Michael observed with care how she ran to the book and the lines upon lines of scribbles on her scratch paper, watching for talents she might possess to make everything worth everything. "Perhaps the girl is smart. Or perhaps she's nothing at all but a tool, depending on what we're about to learn from Stephen. Perhaps even her only use was to bring us to him. But we must temper our expectations," Michael decided bitterly, praying for his god's own godly level of patience because he was running severely thin on it himself. Lewis just sat on Claire and Stephen, apparently if that was his name's bed, with a huff. It was clear Claire was annoyed by that as she glanced his way away from the book, but Michael just resolved to beat some manners into Lewis when they got back into their own bed later. He already had a great deal of stress to release on Lewis before he released it on someone else and probably murdered them, so a few slaps here and there on his warlock was necessary to keep his public temper in line. Before Claire warned him, Michael shifted his eyes and therefore his own inner translating powers, knowing that she told Stephen, Chief Elder Michael's going to use magic to make you able to talk.
I can talk.
Yes, but talk good and calming.
Is magic?
Yes, no hurt you. Stephen appeared to hesitate, but didn't argue, glancing worriedly between all of them, but staying mostly calm at Claire's prompting, and so Michael began the incantations. When it was over, the four of them sat looking at each other. Did it work? Claire asked Michael, and Stephen answered by starkly looking at the book which Claire had not touched before talking, then Claire's scratch paper which she had not read off of. Do you know what I'm saying? Yes, I do. I know exactly what you're saying. This is amazing. You didn't even touch the talking paint leaves. Claire stifled a squeal, and they each leaned to hug each other, but Michael stopped them. Short time frame, he reminded them, getting right to business. Where are you from before the orcs? I have no idea, Stephen gushed. It almost works too well, Michael thought with a laugh. How long have they had you? Stephen spoke very quickly, so excited to not have to think about every word with the sudden power to easily know exactly what these people wanted and the ability to tell them exactly what he meant. A very long time. Almost forever. I barely remember anything from before. The first orcs I was with just made me do chores. They beat me and chained me up, but other than the first couple of weeks, they never really hurt me, and they let me eat most of the time. They would only hurt you if you tried to fight them or run away. They sold me to other ones that made me fight people and animals and monsters, and they hurt me so much. But they fed me when I won, and sometimes between fights, and fixed me when I broke, and after they hurt me too bad, and when I got sick. The other ones you killed stole me from those second ones, and they hurt me, oh my god, so much. And they never fed me unless I won, and I was so hurt, and I kept losing. And so they kept not feeding me and hurting me, and I kept getting sick. I thought I was going to die. I knew you were humans, but I thought you might do the same thing, even more because you were fighters. I was so afraid. Are you afraid now? Of us? No. I know you're good and so nice to me, and I know you won't hurt me for fun, or even if I do something you won't like. But I remember being scared from before, and it makes me scared even though I know you weren't like them. I don't know why. I know you're nice to me, but I just remember what they used to do, and it scares me. You're so nice to me, he said with a longing look at Claire, but Michael called back his attention yet again. What do you remember about the place you lived before the orcs? Stephen seemed to pause to think for once. There were buildings. Big water, hot, green. Everybody was humans and a few elves and dwarves. A big snow-colored building. Nobody fought and everyone ate and everyone was nice to each other. There was a chief, or more than one, but everyone was nice. Nobody ever yelled or fought. We didn't travel or camp or hunt. Do you remember any names? Any symbols? Stephen pondered for another long moment before finding something. There was a rune everywhere. It was everywhere. I've seen the orcs take them from people on ropes on their necks and their clothes or weapons sometimes. The same color as the small good plates, the better plates, but not the best plates. What? I don't know what they're called, but everyone has them. They trade them and steal them and bet with them. They kill each other over them. Some of them are the same color as you, he said with a nod to Lewis. Michael pulled a gold coin out of his pocket. This? Yes, those. That color was everywhere. The color's called gold. The small good plates are called coins. Coins are also called money. Stephen nodded, obviously really wanting to learn and remember, but looking worried as the words already began to fade from his mind. Elder Michael had to remind himself to keep the tone of the conversation low and slow. They were trying to learn from the pet, not teach the pet today. After standing just to lean over and putting his hands solidly on his hips, Lewis mumbled to Claire with a smirk, "Maybe he's rich. We can see if anyone's handing out reward money." She waved a hand to swat at him, but wasn't really trying because she was too focused on Elder Michael giving Stephen a pen and paper to draw the rune on. They then had to explain what a pen and paper was and demonstrate how it worked, even after he had seen Claire writing with one all day. After a moment of trying to figure out how to hold it with his wrecked hands, Stephen drew a crude circle with wiggly bits coming out of it. By some miracle, Michael felt he might recognize it. "This rune, is it the symbol of Pelor? Have you heard the word Pelor before?" It sounds familiar," Stephen said while grimacing hopefully. After a thoughtful eyebrow quirk from Michael and Kind, he asked, "What else do you remember about before the orcs?" Stephen shook his head to clear up the fleeting images like an etch-a-sketch, really digging for anything as he furrowed his one eyebrow. There was a snow-colored building with the rune on top. The snow-colored building was the tallest one, and the rune was on top. The roof was pointy, like a spear to the sky. I belonged in this building, and when we were scared and sad, we'd go there. Sometimes when we were happy, too. I wasn't allowed to run or play in the building, but I liked being there. There was music and magic. Outside the building, there was hot snow that didn't melt unless you got it wet, and then it turned into mud, but then it would turn back into hot snow. But the hot snow wasn't snow-colored. The hot snow was the same color as shit or leather. It was hot. There was water forever, but it didn't hurt when you got in it. The water tasted like blood. But before I knew how blood tasted. "He knows what color shit is, but not gold?" The quarter dragon peanut gallery mumbled again, and Claire finally elbowed the twink hard in his ribs and whispered death at him. "They probably rubbed his face in one and not the other. Now shut up before I do the same to you." Lewis put his hands up, and after smothering a snarl, Claire tried to look in her favorite little blue eye again and calm down. "How big was the snow-colored building?" Michael asked while pointedly ignoring the other two so Stephen wouldn't get distracted. "Huge. Everyone could fit in it." "Everyone?" "Everyone. It is a safe place," Stephen seemed to recite. "Were there more people than are in our camp, or less?" "There were almost the same as how many the orcs were." Michael pondered. "About 600, then. Was there more land on the other side of the big water?" After some meaningful squinting, Stephen remembered with slight awe. It was just water forever. "The hot snow, was it like this?" Michael pinched some dry dirt from his slightly muddy boots and crushed it up as he sprinkled it down. "Yes," Stephen said strongly, so thrilled at being easily understood. "It was like that, and sometimes hard." "It was loose in the places like this where the people walked, and by the big water, right?" There was hot snow everywhere by the big water." "Do you remember anything else?" And here Stephen drew back down again. He looked high and low for memory for several moments, but eventually he sadly gave up as he just found lint in the pockets of his hemorrhaged brain. Michael was disappointed, but put his fingers on his chin to think. "Pelor Church on the coast, arid climate, small village. Time check, Lewis." "Only 7 minutes, boss." "Tell me when we get to 15. "Okay." "When did you see the orcs for the first time?" "I knew the orcs were scary and bad and that I should run away and hide." Everyone shrugged. It was solid advice. "They would hurt people in the buildings and break things and steal. But the first time I saw them was when they left us with them. These humans in snow-colored clothes brought us out, and they were sad and angry, and I knew I was supposed to be running away, but they wouldn't let me. I knew the people in the snow clothes. I lived with some of them, I think. They wore the Pelor rune on neck ropes and belts, too. I can't remember what they looked like, but we lived in a place with a wood floor and snow-colored walls. There were so many pretty things I wasn't supposed to touch. But they made me go with the orcs. Everyone was crying. I was crying. They left us with the orcs, and the orcs took us back to their camp. Us? I remember there being 2 other humans with me. I know I knew them, but I don't remember who they were. They were bigger than me, and had beer-colored hair too. But they were smaller than I am now, and I was much smaller than them then. Frenzios, maybe? Maybe? They were nice to me. They kept trying to talk to me, but I don't know what they were saying, and I couldn't answer for some reason. I know I used to be able to talk, but after a few days with the orcs, I couldn't anymore. I don't know what happened. I'd be yelling, and they didn't understand me. I was dizzy for so long. I knew I wasn't dizzy before, and I'm not now. Well, sometimes after fights are hurting me. Or, I don't know. They kept me warm and made sure I ate. They would try to run away, and the orcs would beat them, and they would fight back, and one day the biggest one actually won a fight. He killed an orc, but that made them really angry, and so they tied him up naked outside. They broke his bones and poured hot water all over him, and his skin fell off, and he froze, and he died. He died looking at me, with his mouth and eyes open, frozen. The other one that was smaller than him but bigger than me got really sick, like throwing up blood sick. And they took him away, and I never saw him again. They've had loads of other prisoners and slaves too, and a few tried to talk to me, but I usually didn't know what they were talking about, and sometimes I knew people were speaking Orcish, but I still didn't understand what they were saying for a long time. Half the time I didn't know what the orcs said either, even now. And if we tried to talk, or if they got upset that I was ignoring them, or if they panicked too much and started yelling or crying, or the orcs saw us, both of us would get in trouble and they'd beat us or hurt us or worse. Or they might just kill them. I just tried to ignore them. Ignore everything. If you're boring, they don't want to play with you anymore. Michael felt haunted by that statement, but knew it was true. He'd gotten disinterested in people who lost their fight also. Why'd they never kill you? I don't know. I think they tried a few times, but I would always just wake back up in my cage. I don't know. Maybe just I was funny. Fun to hurt. Chores. Toy for the orcs. When there was nothing to do, or if they met another group, they would get other people or animals and make me fight. Did you ever kill anyone? Stephen sighed quietly. His jaw shook, and he'd had a hard time looking at anyone but Claire while talking before. But now, as he choked, he was fighting to even keep his eyes open at all. Sometimes, on purpose or not, sometimes I had to, and sometimes not because I wanted to like the orcs did. Not because I wanted to, not to make me happy, but to not. After you said we wouldn't fight, I was so afraid to tell you. Stephen choked up and finally fearfully looked at Claire, terrified. Claire took his hand and crushed it in her squeeze, absolutely not mad at him at all, and he whimpered from his soul too, closing his eye again, but now in relief while shuddering. It was obvious to Michael that somehow the creature they found in a cage thought murder was wrong, though he wondered how long it would take for him to get over that in the face of Mercoul. After a moment of relishing that Claire wasn't mad at him, Stephen dragged himself back to his haunted story. A lot of camp parties were just a dream for me. I didn't want to. Everyone would have fun hurting me, show me off to new works, beat me, let them beat me, make me fight a warg, beat me again, really hurt me, let me lay in the snow for an hour, drag me somewhere else where they do it all again. I remember fighting people. I knew some people weren't going to get back up. I didn't want to, but they weren't going to stop. If I didn't make them stop fighting me, I would lose. I remember knocking people out. I remember choking people. I remember them doing it to me. I can tear people apart. I can break their heads. Sometimes I saw them again, and sometimes I didn't. I think some would try to ask me not to, but no matter what we did, they were just going to hurt us later. Win, lose, scream, don't scream, it didn't matter. If I didn't win, they wouldn't let me eat, and if I didn't eat, I would keep losing. If I lost too much, they would hurt me until I thought I would die, and then they would make me fight again, or wait a few days before they let me eat and make me fight again, or hurt me again. If I was going to fight, they would hurt me and not let me eat for days before. And I knew they wouldn't stop, but at least I'd get to eat again. So I would fight them. I fought them until they stopped fighting me, and sometimes that wasn't until they died. The orcs were going to hurt us either way. I think a lot of them didn't know that. It doesn't matter. If you make them happy, they're still going to hurt you and kill you. I think they like to make me fight people because I look scary. They trade more good plates for me. People get scared when they put me in the pit with them because I look like I've been in a lot of fights, even though really I just get tied up and hurt for fun for hours. And they tell people that I win a bunch, that I'm a warg, but a human warg. They say you're part wolf? No, like I live in a cage and I eat raw meat off the ground. I wear a collar and I smell bad. I actually don't know what I smell like, but everyone says some words of bad and smell around me. You used to, Claire confessed, but you don't now after the baths. I feel better after them too, Stephen passionately confessed to her, absolutely chock full of wonder and awe at the girl. I'm not sick anymore. The fire water and the special snot and the air balls, the small white rocks, the other snow-colored flat rope stuff you put all over me and wouldn't let me take off. I feel so much better, Claire. All that stuff you did to me and put on me and made me eat. I don't know how to say thank you. I want to say thank you, but I don't know how. I don't know what any of that was, but I want to thank you so bad, Claire. Bandages, Claire gently supplied. And medicine. And the stuff that makes the water balls is called soap. Bandages and medicine and soap. It was as if those things were holy, as if they were the most comforting words he'd ever heard, like cellar door or hearth. He looked so happy so suddenly that he nearly choked and spoke to Claire from his soul. I feel better. I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you over and over again. Even when you hurt me, I feel better after. And even when you hurt me, you're trying to fix me. I feel better. Please, please don't stop. Please don't stop. Please don't leave me. You're so nice to me. You're so nice to me. Thank you, Claire. Don't leave me. Please, please, Claire, I need you to know that I want to say thank you. I want to thank you. I want to thank you, but I don't know what to say. You're doing it. You're doing it. That's how you say it. She pet his head and hugged his face to her chest. He sobbed suddenly and even harder than usual when receiving a hug.
What makes you feel better, Stephen? I want to keep you. Please don't leave me. Please, you're so nice to me. I'm sorry I killed people. You're so nice to me. Please don't leave.
And he broke off into sobbing too hard to keep begging. Claire just kept petting his head and hugging him so hard that Michael thought she might suffocate him in her shawl. Just like how he couldn't stop begging her not to abandon him, Claire couldn't stop promising over and over that she would never leave. Claire absolutely did not care that Stephen had killed people that the orcs made him fight. They could never be his fault. She would never blame him for that in a million years and told him so.
You're such a good boy, Stephen. I love you and you're always going to be with me. Nobody's ever going to hurt you again, and I don't care that you hurt people at all. McCool people hurt people all the time. Nobody cares. They're going to like you even more, Stephen. You're such a good boy. I'm never going to leave you anywhere, ever. I love you.
Thank you, Stephen whimpered, absolutely losing it, but forcing out the reply to the words he knew he'd never heard. I love you too, Claire. Stephen broke off in an agonized whine that threatened to scream, and he buried himself in her. Out of the corner of her eye, Claire saw that Lewis rolled his eyes so hard that it distracted her, and that distraction made Claire realize that Michael was casting a spell again, and just as suddenly as the incantation was over, Stephen stopped crying and sat up straight. The emotion common spell, Michael explained. Merkul's magic smells good, Stephen mumbled with his last sniffles, still sitting very close to Claire, but mostly letting her go. Claire had whiplash, very disturbed by the magic that had taken what might have been her happiest moment from her as soon as it had come. Right. Michael snapped his fingers as he remembered. He was happy that Stephen was a murderer and that he found Merkul pleasant already. How can you smell magic? I don't know, but I've always been able to. He sat back but still tightly held Claire's hands as she wiped her eyes on her dress. It helped me fight people who could do magic, or when the orcs let me fight them, or let them fight me with their own magic weapons. So I knew what they were going to do, and they couldn't surprise me. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to anymore when that lizard man bit off my nose, but I don't think it's really in my nose. They used to have me track magic people or stuff sometimes, back when I could walk. Well, I only haven't been able to walk for 2 winters, I think. That was with the first and second ones. That's why they bought me to find magic things. Also with the fighting. But I never told the third ones because I don't think they would have cared. And they didn't fix my legs after they broke them, so I couldn't walk around and at things and smell them. What does Merkul smell like? Cold, Stephen easily answered. Cold, but blankets. Animal hair ones. What do Merkul blankets smell like? Lewis asked with an upturned nose, looking at the bed he had sat down on with potential disgust. Not the painful hot? Bath hot. Old, clean, sleepy, soup. That and the leaves you burned, he told Michael. The tied up ones from praying the other day. Sage? Maybe? Is it an actual smell? Or more how things feel, emotionally? Feel? He doesn't know the difference in that either? Lewis groaned. Michael glared at Lewis along with Claire. Stephen knowing the difference in smell and feel wasn't really that important, but Michael still couldn't help but be intrigued. Merkul's smell sounded like it was pleasant to Stephen. Michael himself had always felt the sensation of cold, refreshing water whenever his god's power went through him. What does my magic smell like? The not Merkul magic? Yes. And it was incredible that Stephen could tell Michael had 2 different sources. High-level wizards had been fooled by that. It smells like magic that other demons use, the The orcs caught a small demon once, but didn't make me fight it. The orc magic man made it go away. Hot metal, burning hair. Hot soup, but not fire hot? Like the soup itself is hot no matter how cold it is. Spicy? Claire asked. Is that what it is? She held up some jerky from her snack stash that had been marinated in black peppercorns. Oh, yes, that. And you smell like that too, but much smaller, Stephen told Lewis. Michael nodded, a bit self-conscious now, even if Stephen hadn't said those descriptions in a negative tone of voice. Why do you even care if he said you smell like ass? He's a stupid, crippled pawn. Get it together. He forced himself back to his usual stoic demeanor. You aren't afraid of me, even as a demon. No, I can tell you're old and really, really strong, but Claire says you're nice. And you helped fix me, rescue me, and you gave her the talking paint leaves, which helped so much. I was so afraid because I didn't know what you were going to do with me, but Claire said you only became a demon by accident. Michael did not like to admit that he made mistakes, but selling his soul for the sake of some adventuring buddies who never even tried to go back for him and save him and died themselves within the next 2 decades was his most supreme one. He couldn't even remember any real reasons why he did it. In that moment, 2 millennia before, there had been nothing in his mind but emotions. The decision was a moronic one, he knew now. They had all worshipped the god of death, and Michael had sacrificed not only himself, but all the power Merkul had put into him as his champion for nothing but mortal lives. This idiocy was why Merkul had not rescued him or given him a new soul. Michael had given up all of that when he and his companions could have just died and avoided all of it. How do you feel about Merkul? Michael finally asked. Well, I didn't really trust him at first. He was very, very scary. I've never talked to a god before, but Claire says he's okay. He doesn't sound worse than the orc gods. Even if he hurts and kills people, he at least has reasons. The orcs hurt people for fun. It doesn't make him happy, he's just supposed to do it. He isn't mad at me for killing people like other gods, like you said, Claire. Other gods don't like it when you hurt people. The people I had to fight, the ones who saw gods, told me that a lot. Claire told you what his mission is. He wants everyone to be dead so they can go to heaven? And how do you feel about that? He's not good. But he's not all bad. I didn't like killing people even when I had to, but the orcs that made me hurt people and hurt me can't do that anymore if the world's over. If he can make people quit hurting people, there will always be bad people to hurt the good people because the world is bad and so the people go mad. No world. I don't like killing people, but bad. Stephen shook his head. Michael felt that Stephen was trying to demonstrate that he was open to the idea, but couldn't find the exact words, even with the translating spell. Would you follow him? I'd follow Claire. Michael and Claire blinked a bit at that. Would you worship him? The songs and smells are pretty? And do you like him better than other gods? What about the Bahamut priest that healed you? What does Bahamut smell like? Well, Bahamut smells like sugar, and even if it felt good and was really nice, you guys fix me so much too. And Merkul said the other gods can't fix everything, and there will always be bad things no matter how much they do, and that I'm not sure they would like me if they actually knew me. Stephen stretched his leg in and out, touching a scar on his knee. Stephen admitted, finding the words he needed earlier. Merkul said the other gods might even not fix things on purpose, so people will keep going to them when things are bad. That they know they can't do enough and lie about it. They blame their followers for everything not being perfect and don't admit that they're not strong enough. They aren't strong enough and never will be, and both sides always get stronger or weaker together. They can't ever stop them. They can't fix everything, and even if they do, they tell their people they need to get stronger to stop the bad people, but the bad people just get stronger when the good people get stronger. And they can't stop bad people from hurting good people, and bad people keep making more bad people by hurting them, and so we make it where there are no people at all. So nobody gets hurt in the first place. Absolutely correct, Michael assured all of them, and then he nearly screamed as the sensation of cold water fell over him. With an icy spike to his heart, Michael knew that his God was pleased at last. Is that what it took, Lord? Why and how does this make you happy? In all of eternity, I will never understand. Michael was still weak in the blessed feeling, but even so he thought sarcastically, May you humble me to accept what I cannot understand and accept your will regardless. Michael took a deep, finally satisfied breath in and out. He firmly patted Claire's shoulder in praise and commended her. You did great. Which felt really good to hear, even if there was still something off about the whole situation. Claire blinked as she realized it. She had not told Stephen all of that. It was true, or at least the others believed it, but she hadn't said that much in those words. She wondered if she should bring it up, then thought, bring up what? That Stephen has independent thought? She imagined Lewis's snarky responses to her saying something, then congratulated herself. I knew he's smarter than he puts on. That thought was interrupted, however, by Stephen asking Michael a question for once. Stephen asked horribly nervously, every part of him made of dread despite Michael's calming spells. And do you want me to fight people? I hated it, and Claire said that I wouldn't have to, but if that's Merkul's thing, then... Michael looked him up and down, the barely walking, half-blind, tree-root-handed cripple who could barely hold his crutches, much less a weapon. I don't need you to fight, Michael said, knowing that would immediately calm him, and Claire, who had visibly turned to stone at Michael even pondering, saying yes. I only want you to protect Claire, yourself, and other people in the group. We will never, ever, make you fight like the orcs did. He felt he could promise at least that much, and both of them looked extremely, almost exhaustedly relieved. Let us pray, Michael heartily said, motioning for everyone to take hands. It was all for show, but if his god wanted the barely walking moron, or at least Claire who wanted the barely walking moron, then he felt he should pray while Stephen could still understand. Claire did not like holding Lewis's hand, and Lewis made it a clear point to walk all the way around the circle so he didn't have to touch Stephen, but Michael focused on the way Lewis's claws dug into his own palm, soothing himself by imagining them digging into his back later, while he held Stephen's mangled fingers in his other. Lord, praise be your name over all the planes. May your will be exacted over each of us and the universe over, bringing all things to your merciful end. Please shelter us and our flock in this town as we revel and recover in, from, and for your mission. Forgive us for not yet knowing the way which will bring all to darkness, and guide us to that lead which will take us there. Keep us from the way of the wasters, those that would only delay your inevitable, and keep them away from us in return, so that we shall not be delayed. We exalt you for our small victories and pleasures, for every word we know, and every step we take, but pray that our small joys will never lead us astray.
Every handful of this world is yours, and the others just do not know it yet. Please take us day by day to the day when we will share it all with you. Amen.
Michael and Claire watched Stephen as he sat back a bit. The talking makes me think of the snow building, he said appreciatively. The safe place? Claire asked hopefully. Michael had never been happier that he'd held his tongue, and he crushed Lewis's hand to make him hold his.
Yes,
Michael told them.
yes.
Stephen nodded to them to agree, and Claire was about to tear up yet again while she hugged Stephen yet again. Michael didn't care what anyone else was thinking, only that he was successfully forcing them to associate Mercoul with home and nostalgia. What he had almost said was, "It reminds you of how they prayed in the Pillow Church?"
Mercoul is home now. Mercoul is a safe place now. And we're happy to have you here. Stephen, you will always have a place here. A safe place. Claire is already one of our own, and you are too now. Your family now. And in a world set for destruction, that is all we have. We're going to help you until you can help yourself and beyond. You may not yet have a calling, but even if all you can do is enlighten others with fellowship, then you too will serve a glorious purpose to our God.
Michael had used some pretty big words there, but he was pretty sure Stephen had understood as he looked touched, nodded, and continued to hold Claire's hand even as the others broke away.
Time check,
Michael asked Lewis. The quarter dragon sputtered at realizing he'd forgotten to keep track before looking at a pocket watch and doing some math. Like 6 minutes are left from the fourth casting of tongues. Calm emotions probably just went out. Increase intellect has 10.
Talk amongst yourselves,
Michael happily invited Claire and Stephen. They did, and shockingly Stephen asked Claire about herself before Claire could ask some more about him. Michael nodded along as she recounted her tale of being the child of alligator hunters, becoming an orphan, street urchin, and then the Mercoulians finding her. "Alligators sound worse than wargs!" Stephen cried out in shock. Claire showed him a small set of scars on her forearm.
"These are from a little one, the first one my daddy let me catch."
Stephen looked horrified, forgetting the wasteland of dog bites he had on every inch of him. "That's so scary!" "I killed it, though." "Good. I would have gone back there to find it and bite it back for you." Claire giggled and asked him, "Do you know how to swim?" And tragically, Stephen replied in Orcish. The tongue spell was over, but he was still smart enough with increased intellect to realize that this was what happened, and he mimed swimming to show that he knew.
"Vigwater. I swam in the Vigwater before the orcs."
Michael bid them adieu, and they teleported away, landing just outside in an alley so they wouldn't all be seen together. "God, he's so fucking ugly."
"Indeed. And so is your attitude."
"Oh, please. You're only nice to him for clout."
"And what does that mean again?"
"Clout? God, you're so old." Michael wished, not for the first time, that his demon interpreting powers extended to youth slang.
"He will serve a purpose. Which one, I have no idea, but our father wants him around, and so he's sticking around. Whether I like it or not."
"Yeah, and you're gonna make me fight, not him?"
"You are more than fit enough."
"Are you gonna want me when I have scars all over me?" "I don't think so. I'm too pretty. And look at my wrists," Lewis said, demonstrating. "They're limp. Look, I can't do anything about it."
"If an enemy gives you more holes, then I'll just have to fill them."
Michael growled through a smile, especially smiling at Lewis's concerned mutter. "My safe word is placostomus."
"What'd you think about Stephen, otherwise?"
"That was pointless," Lewis said with a laugh and a skip to his step, no longer nervous as long as he could talk down about someone.
"You think so?"
"I don't really care either way. I just said that before you started bitching about it again. I've almost memorized you grumbling about him. Can we go back to the bar now? That tequila was fucking good."
"The whorehouse? What, does it make you homesick?"
"God, whatever, old man. Buy me a bottle and I'll do that thing you like again."
I thought you said your feet hurt from me making you walk around all day.
They do, but they're good enough for that. And, if you keep working me to death like this, my feet scales are gonna get all hard. Neither of us like that. And the thing with the feet wasn't even what I've been offering to do, you weirdo. With that in mind, Michael enthusiastically put his arm around Lewis's shoulders.
To the bar.
Back in the hotel room, Claire asked, "When did you decide all that stuff about McCool?"
What stuff?
Claire described the advanced theories he had spoken about. She had told him about McCool wanting everything to be over, to send everyone to heaven, but not all that about the gods can't end bad things made out on purpose, that they all may be lying about being good guys for power, that the bad people are never going away, that there was balance in everything, so good people should die too, because good people getting more power just makes the forces of bad people get more power. She had heard this before, but in all honesty hadn't wanted to force it on someone so impressionable, while she herself wasn't sure she believed it. Things got horribly bad sometimes, but anything could get better. That was what literally everyone she had ever met since getting down on her luck had said. She had survived on church soup kitchens for years. Everyone believed that things would someday get better, and for Claire, in the past few years it had. Not with a god those soup kitchen people would approve of, but still. Claire was dragged out of her contemplations as Stephen answered her original question.
Oh, McCool told me. And I think he's right, even if I don't really like it.
He what?
He talked to me in dreams, after you taught me about him, and a little bit when you all first found me. That night when you started to fix me. It was very scary at first. He's all bones. I thought he was a giant zombie.
Claire just sat back with wide eyes. After a moment, she considered calling, screaming down the streets for Michael to come back.
Why didn't you tell Michael? Was I supposed to? He only asked me about before.
She had no answer, and while her mind blanked out, slowly but surely he started to look panicked. "Not mad at you," Claire said reflexively. She'd memorized how to say that in Orcish by now. The girl was absolutely not able to think of anything else, though.
Will he be?
No, Claire lied. She had no idea, really. "Well, Michael did say that McCool was interested in you. Sounds like fucking interest to me."
He said I could be all strong like Michael someday, but I don't know if I want that. The saying parts are right, but I don't want to hurt good people. He said that Michael did that sometimes, looking for tools and smart stuff. That he had to, or it didn't matter because we were going to eventually kill everyone, and we were just killing them early. But I don't want to hurt good people, even unless we're doing the big boom where it all goes away. It does matter. Dying hurts. Even if they all go to heaven early, everyone who knows them is going to be sad. It just seems mean. Like what the orcs did. We can't hurt good people if we're only doing things to help good people. That doesn't make sense.
"We shouldn't hurt good people," Claire numbly agreed in a near whimper.
"Are you hurt?"
he asked it, picking up on her tone of voice. "No. Let's go to bed, Stephen."
"Okay." He said he might talk to me again tonight.
"He did?" It was at that moment the increase intellect spell ended.
"Yes. Claire safe?"
"Claire safe," she assured him. Not really sure, though. "Stephen safe." She was not sure of that either, but said it anyway. "Why McCool talk to you?" Stephen quirked his eyebrow like he knew what he meant, but just didn't know how to say it, eventually supposing,
"New? Good? Strong? Not meat strong,"
he clarified, poking his bicep. "Heart strong?" Claire guessed. Stephen wasn't sure. "You have magic that McCool smells?"
"I have no magic,"
he said, confessing, though.
No magic smelling is magic or no."
"Chief Michael,"
Tell him tomorrow.
He asked when Merkul talk?
He tell why, unless Stephen know.
No, but word, Stephen said frustratedly. Merkul tell why. No, but he tell why. Stephen talk good to Merkul. Very much magic. Stephen make Merkul warm when? After eat, good sleep. Stephen still couldn't think of the word, but he had the idea to exaggeratedly smile, the only way he could convey that he was smiling with almost no lips, and point to himself. Stephen make Merkul make good face.
You make him happy?
Stephen copied the words he had heard Claire say to him a few times, and that the orcs had said to the wargs. Good boy.
Merkul talks to Stephen because Stephen's a good boy?
Yes. Claire found it hard to disagree, but while she herded him into bed and pulled the blankets around her and her good boy, she wondered how on earth she could sleep knowing that Merkul was looking directly at her. In the morning, Toxic woke them. Over the days, they had sold everything worth selling, and she informed them that another group of the flock was going to pretend to be the rest of the house militia from their cover story, meeting up with the survivors to go home the rest of the way. The others wouldn't be there until evening and were staying the night from their journey before setting off again, and in the morning they would leave to go back to the main camp before the rest of the group got back. They were leaving to meet back up in staggered shifts to not be noticed, and then they would all leave together after they met up outside of town. As far as where they were going after this, there were only rumors, but even if there had been concrete news, it would be information they couldn't talk about in public. They would be here for only one more night, and since they'd hidden in their room the entire time, save skittish trips to the outhouse, Claire felt she needed to socialize Stephen more. He hadn't spent any time in a town in years, barely even remembering times that he had before, and they were likely about to go spend a great deal of time in the wilderness and on the road again. Spending time in their room did not count as spending time in a town. Outside would be way too scary, so Claire asked Toxic and Reese and the others to help her set Stephen down in the tavern. The others were almost excited as Claire had been to learn that Stephen had a name, and Claire brought the dictionary and scratch paper down so they could all talk as they relaxed and ate. Or really, they talked and ate while Stephen tried to stay calm. Toxic and the others did ask him about his past a bit, even if they had little patience for the time it took Claire to translate. After recounting his sad, short tale, Reese had asked, "So, how do you fight people if you can't stand up?" "Could stand. No walk, but stand. Stand very much hurt. Sometimes break bone again from only standing. No run, no walk, but jump? Jump, bite legs, punch knees, pull down, smash head." The others nodded appreciatively, and Claire felt sick while translating. Yeah, of course they only care about the fighting, she thought nauseously. The only one to notice Claire's discomfort, Toxic thankfully redirected them to think about what they wanted for lunch. It was on Elder Michael's dime, after all. "What's your favorite food, Stephen?" the woman asked him. "Soup," the boy said almost loudly, grinning at even the idea of it and along with the others as they started to laugh at his surprising enthusiasm. Not only was it his favorite food, but it was quickly becoming his favorite word, one of about 10 he now knew in common. Others spoke to them too. They sat in a corner table, and Claire let Stephen wear the hooded cloak he came into town with. A few bar patrons recognized them and waved and asked how he was doing. They kept it vague. "Oh, so much better. And more steps every day." But not a bit more than that. It was very hard for Stephen to not do anything but scrunch up and hide when these people came by, but Claire repeatedly reminded him that these people were not orcs, and even the half-orc that wandered through for a moment that morning was not a bad person and was not going to hurt him. Food relaxed him as always, though, and he was eventually able to people-watch and study the building like Claire had wanted, as they ate cheese, buttered rolls, tomato soup, and bar peanuts. Toxic even bought both of them small cups of a weak mead. Claire didn't know if it was a good idea to ask Stephen if he'd had another dream from Merkul. She knew she should tell Michael eventually, but was too afraid to tell the others, both because she was afraid of how they would react and if someone would overhear them. Mainly, she worried if McCool talking to her boy was a good thing at all. She wondered if there was anything she could do about it now, and while they had done so much for her, if she herself could really be called a follower of McCool. Stephen did not offer much information either. Eventually, Stephen slept with his head on Claire's shoulder as evening and the other party of house militia arrived. They made a very public show of greeting each other and asking all sorts of concerned questions, the new ones even lightly grieving the imaginary souls that were lost to the imaginary bandits, and being amazed by Stephen. The adults went out to maintain horses and help the replacement house militia carry their things into newly booked rooms, leaving Stephen and Claire alone in the bar for a moment. They were happy, eating a small dinner in peace, the second-to-last fresh meal they would get before they went back on the road. This peace was interrupted, however, by a haggard group of men entering the bar while the others had left Stephen and Claire alone. Several took up seats at a different table, others at the bar ordering drinks, and one took a shining look at Claire and Stephen and walked right up to them and sat at their table, scooting away the others in the party's empty glasses. There were about 6 of these greasy men in all. "You're a little young for so many empty cups," the man said through crooked teeth and an even more slanted smile. "I'm 15, and that drink is only over in the stable." "No, you ain't 15, he sighed, looking around the bar at his companions, who were more than easily distracting the other civilians from this one and Claire and Stephen. He lowered his greasy affectation to a normal but intense tone of voice. "Don't matter. I just wanted to talk to you in private." "No?" Claire nearly laughed, looking for any sign of Toxic or the others. Following men who just wanted to talk into private places was how many an urchin girl like she had disappeared. "It's about him," the man said more seriously, motioning to Stephen. "It's about you getting away from me. My pa is a respected businessman, and I got 10 guards outside waiting to take us back to Stone Garden. If you got to talk about him, then you can talk to my pa." "I know that's a lie. I'm here to help. Please, follow me and I'll explain." "No." "You are in danger here. These people aren't your friends." "Neither are you." "I'm trying to help. I've been paid to come help. Trust me, the people I work for are also highly respected." "He can't barely walk, and I ain't leaving him here." "Both of you will be in the best of hands. These people you're with aren't just weird guards. They aren't employed by your father, or at least he doesn't know what they are. They're cultists. I don't know if you know who McCool is." Claire jumped up out of her seat to scream for Toxic but froze, realizing that she couldn't out herself or them, only thinking of the people she'd come to think of her friends or maybe even family being arrested and killed. She may not have been a McCoolian, but her friends were. In that freeze, the man stood up to grab her arm and pulled her. Claire screamed, but then a second gnarled hand grabbed the stranger's wrist. In one albeit staggering movement, Stephen stood up and ripped the man half off his feet and off of Claire, shoving the heavy table out of the way and knocking several glasses off of it to shatter as he did so. The man let go of Claire and put his hands up. Stephen let go of him but still stood, one hand on the table to keep himself steady. "I'm not gonna hurt you, buddy," the man said softly. The man's companions rose from their distracting positions now that the entire bar was looking at the man, Claire, and Stephen, despite their best efforts. Claire looked desperately for the others as the other men came over. "Come with us," another man quietly pled as he came over. "We're rescuing you." "You got the wrong folks. We don't need nothing. You leave us alone." While Stephen and the first man were locked in a staring contest, this second said, "We don't have time for this," and took Claire's arm again. Stephen shoved the first man back so hard that he staggered and fell, clearing the way for Stephen to grab the second man full by the lapels. This man let go of Claire too as Stephen dragged him, ruined and horrifying snarl inches from his face. Every muscle that Stephen had thus far barely used was tight like iron, and a cutting, soul-deep, black-aurid warning made its way through his teeth. The man was so caught off guard, and so suddenly afraid that he nearly laughed. "Did you just fucking growl at me?" Stephen said nothing, only breathing through his missing nose, letting out a half growl again and squaring his feet. Hey, we were ready to fight them, not you, the first man said desperately as he got back to his feet. He and the other men looked frantically around, presumably for the cultists, and Claire found herself praying, "McCool, please let them come back soon." Like clockwork, Toxic and Co. pushed into the tavern. Reese and the others had already pulled out their weapons as soon as they saw Stephen and the men. The men pulled weapons out too, and the first one to talk to Claire took her again by the arm to shield her from the fray as well as to evacuate her, and as Stephen saw the man touch her again, all hell broke loose. Before the others had even had the thought to move, Stephen slammed his head into the head of the man he'd already been holding. As this man fell, Stephen drew the man's very own dagger and stabbed him with it, spinning, stabbing, and tackling the first man who had touched Claire again. The force of the attack carried them 10 feet, and Stephen slammed the man headfirst into the bar. The wood cracked under his skull, and Stephen dropped the knife as he was knocked by his own blow, even if it was softened by the man he crushed in it. While the man was staggered, Stephen put his fingers into the man's mouth, gripping his bottom jaw from the inside, and just as the man's hands reached for his weapons, Stephen thrust up with all of his might. The man's feet were pulled into the air as Stephen hooked his head under the lip of the bar, and with a scream rivaling a dragon's, Stephen ripped and tore the man's jaw right from his neck. Blood exploded across the bar, and Stephen let the man drop before yanking him once more, detaching the small bit of cartilage that had been left hanging before he re-gripped and used the man's bleeding jaw as a weapon, slamming it into his already cracked scalp over and over as the man's tongue wagged at nothing while he deliriously screamed. The entire bar screamed, every one of them, from the strange would-be rescuers to the Merculians, too stunned to do anything until Stephen turned, dropped the jaw, and took up the first knife again. Behind Stephen, one man reached for a sword, almost too stunned to even know what to do with it, a jewel inside its handle glowing. With a sixth sense, Stephen turned and was tackling him into a window and clutching him by the hair, shredding the man's neck and face with the knife and the glass while the magic sword swung wide. The remaining 3 got it together, and the Merculians had these, all of them fighting with drop jaws. The Merculians dispatched 2, and Stephen came for the 3rd. His stolen knife had gotten stuck in his 3rd victim's ribs, and so he took a bottle and smashed it over the man's head while he'd been distracted with Toxic and Reese, and then turned the man into flesh noodles as he stabbed and slashed him over and over and over again until there was nothing but bloody meat and ribbons. "Stop! Stop!" Claire sobbed, grabbing Stephen and pulling him off the mangled corpse that he'd continued obliterating. "We have to run!" Half of the Merculians held the bar hostage, while the others grabbed anything and everything they could, sprinting themselves to gather their rooms, and then sprinting the horses down the roads to get out of town before the guards came. When they stopped, hiding in a foothill grotto several miles from town, the others made a small, fortified camp, while Claire held the Orcish to Common Dictionary and just stared at it, no idea what to ask. The cover was blood-stained now, but that didn't really bother her. "Not mad at you," she'd been able to choke out to Stephen once they had been semi-safe and started to slow their run. He had obviously become terrified after realizing that it had been her who stopped his rampage. "Good boy. Good Stephen." "Claire good?" "Yes." "Stephen good?" He hesitantly held up one of his hands, which had been deeply lacerated on either the window or one of the weapons. Claire bandaged it as best she could in the speeding cart and was giving him poorly done stitches now that they'd stopped. She wasn't too worried, though, as long as it stopped the bleeding. It wasn't like his hands could get any worse. "Guard Claire," he said softly when she was done. His entire body was rigid, hands shaking, and one eyebrow raised as if he was fearfully asking permission. "Yes. Yes, he did," she sniffled. She was unable to rid her mind of his horrific violence, but hugged him to her long enough to where he knew she was grateful despite her shock. It hadn't bothered her that he killed 4 men to protect her, that he had savagely destroyed them with no idea what they wanted, or for any reason other than they were grabbing Claire, and she visibly hadn't liked that. None of that had been the problem. What bothered her was that his hands and weapons had flashed with purple and black light. Even if those men had been another religion, some spy group, a better way, a better life, they would have killed all of Claire's friends for what they were. Maybe Claire did need to be rescued. Maybe Claire shouldn't be with them. But if another god wanted to rescue her, then they should have done it before the Death Fist found her. That was why Claire had taught Stephen about Mercule. That was why she hadn't let the Bahamut priest take him. If they were bad people for following Merkul, if Merkul was such a bad god, then the other gods should have helped them before it ended up that Merkul was the only one there to save them. Merkul had given Stephen the power to smite, something maybe 3 of the other 60 Death Fists could do. Merkul had plainly spoken to Stephen in dreams, something that he didn't even do with Elder Michael. Stephen had killed those 4 men to protect her, and he'd done it with Merkul's magic and in Merkul's name. It was exactly what Michael had said to do, after all. Protect Claire, protect the flock. All those years in slavery, and Merkul had been the only one to rescue Stephen. Claire could absolutely never judge Stephen for embracing him. Those men who knew what they were would have killed the others, if not also Stephen, and so they deserved to die. Even if Merkul was rightfully something to rescue a 12-year-old girl and a feral boy from, if those people wanted to rescue them, then they should have done it years ago, not after it was too late. Stephen had been with them for less than a month, and Stephen was closer to Merkul than possibly all of them. The world would destroy him for what he was when the world had let him become what he was. Stephen had chosen Merkul, and Claire felt that he deserved to have agency for the first time in his life. Merkul had her boy, and therefore he could have her too. Claire decided right there and then. No more second thoughts. No more doubts. If the world wanted to save them, then it should have done it while they still needed saving. In this long hug, and in this long prayer, Claire was eventually distracted by hearing a flock member recount what had happened to another who had not seen the whole thing. "He's got magic? Already? Holy shit, dude, no wonder Michael kept him around. When was he gonna tell us? They didn't even do the ceremony thing." "Dude, he ripped his jaw off, broke his skull with it, and clawed out his brains with his hands. Steve proceeded to crack another dude's skull like an egg on the window, slash him up, and when it was loose, he tore off his face with his fucking fingernails. He jumped another guy and shred him like cheese, and he never stopped shrieking like a fucking dragon. I think he would have killed everyone in fucking town. Dead. Beyond dead. No jaws. Obliterated. 2 fucking seconds, unholy screeching like a fucking pterodactyl that I'm gonna hear in my sleep. All of y'all are pussies. Get on Steve's level. That's why he has magic. What could this fucker do with a sword? That's all I'm saying, folks. That's all I'm saying. Fuck a sword, dude. Get him some star sugar. Holy fuck, dude. Just set him loose. Did you know him, Stephen? Claire could find nothing to explain it. Nothing to explain the savageness her little blue baby had caused. No. Smell, no, though. Like God magic. Like God? Which one? No. But, God magic. Very not Merkul God, though. Not Orc God or Nice Dragon God. Why'd you do that to them? You hate fighting. Scared you? Grabbed you? He said simply, but with another worried and depressed grimace. Claire say no have to fight. Claire let eat. Claire fix. Claire's so nice. Claire say no one hurt Stephen anymore. So Stephen say no one hurt Claire. No one hurt Claire ever. Claire certainly felt safer with Stephen around. The blood of a man who'd merely pulled at her wrist painted her vision every time she closed her eyes, and still painted Stephen's clothes. He didn't take no for an answer and would have killed all of her friends, so while it was weird that Stephen said he smelled like a goodly god and how brutally Stephen had killed him, again, Claire was glad he was dead. Thank you. But you don't have to kill everyone you fight, even to protect me. Forgot, Stephen grimly and guiltily said. Too angry, too scared. Orcs want fighting until pull off. When enemy pretend dead, they get back up again. Lose. So keep hitting until orcs make stump. Not even then sometime.
Orcs say stop, but enemy no stop even when you do. Not listen bad. Lose worse. Make mistake before, he said with a wise but dour tap to his nose. Sometime not listen good. Make enemy think scary. Think I'm too angry and fighty to even be afraid of orcs, so enemy scared of me more, so good plate trade. So orcs not angry after. Still punish, but not bad. Not at all, if win sometime. But orcs not here, he said with his eye darkening, black guilt crossing his face as he painfully looked at the literal blood on his hands. Not angry. Happy. Y'all good boy. Stephen deflated with relief, even if there was still darkness in his eye. And even though she'd been honest, Claire still shuddered. She had killed already too, to protect herself. She knew he'd lived as a fighting dog his entire life, but Claire hadn't been ready to see Stephen as anything but her baby yet. Much less a man who could kill 4 people in about 12 seconds. Much less what Michael called a paladin. Stephen McCool magic. Yes. Stephen was set back a little as he remembered, looking at his hands again as though he was still surprised too while he explained what had been going through his mind at the time. Chief Elder Michael say guard. Remember, he will fight with magic. Magic from their gods. McCool say give Stephen magic in sleep talks. Stephen no if use it. Like McCool, but Stephen no want hurt good people. But Stephen ask McCool for magic. For protect you. I'm glad he gave it to you. He said train more in sleep talks. Stephen no want sleep talks before, but McCool scary bones. Not good people. But nice sleep talks. Nice to Stephen. Like you. I'm happy, Claire told him from her heart. She was still overcome by raw conviction, but felt even better now knowing that McCool wasn't pressuring Stephen to talk to him, how he hadn't forced him to do anything, how Stephen hadn't made a deal for the magic, and that it had just been given. She was still so overwhelmed that she was fighting tears, but she and Stephen cleaned up a little, and it wasn't soup, but they ate some of what they'd stolen on their way out of the tavern before she made him go to bed. It's something that he was very happy to do anyway. The others buzzed about what Stephen had done too, but other than asking if they were all right, they didn't ask any more questions. There was no doubt that Stephen had earned his blessings, even if it was extraordinary, and they didn't have the patience to make Claire translate. The general consensus was that they'd ask Elder Michael about it, and couldn't wait to brag on Stephen's behalf. She was supremely grateful for this. She had no idea how to answer anything they might have asked her, and it would have been impossible to hide her own shock and bewilderment if she had the energy to even try. This was another likely reason why they hadn't interrogated her. The girl was openly, supremely exhausted. Claire prayed to drown out the others' gossip while they made a makeshift bed in one of the carts and the others stood guard. She clung to his back, pressing her nose into his shoulder, and they fell asleep. Michael woke them with his presence alone. A silent, ancient evil towering over them. What the fuck? Neither Claire nor Stephen had an answer, realizing that everyone else in their 10-man camp was awake too. Do you even know what you've done? They sat up and Claire was breathless, cold as ice, having no idea where to even begin. Michael reached for Stephen's shirt with a forked tongue lashing out from his reddening face and fiery rage in his eyes, but Stephen caught the demon's wrist. They hunt Rakul. Claire ran to translate, but Michael already knew. They're hunting us because of you. Stephen pointed to his head with a crooked finger, so aggressively that it gave even Michael pause. Stephen could only point pointedly to his temple again. You want me in your head, you little shit. You fuck.
Michael figured that he might as well reveal to them that he could communicate telepathically with the boy, the creature, by digging into his mind and wrenching out whatever the hell it meant, and much more importantly, what he was demanding to know. Claire couldn't bug him to translate after Stephen was dead. 5 men are dead because of you. Our men. They've imprisoned 3, and if they talk before we get 'em out, then we're fucked. Not that they will talk, cause these chuckle fucks will have 'em executed once they're no longer useful for intel, and they know who's gonna be waiting for them at death's door if they betray us. But still, and Loven Kahn's the one leading the charge to rescue them, so they have hope. But Stephen, you better fucking tell me how you're worth 5 men, and possibly 8, and possibly all of us. Rakul say happy that they're dead. Elder Michael stood in silence. He could do nothing else. Every iota of will used fighting every urge to scream and kill all of them. Stephen eventually realized that he needed to explain. Rakul tellin' dream. Dead men, good. Some go to heaven, happy, win, treat, done. Some dead men bad. Heaven still family, yes, but bad. 2 get in trouble, not listen, too dangerous. Loven Kahn, good fighter, rescue tonight. No lose, kill men who hurt Claire, and win. Keep from find everyone too. Follow us from works, not find us in town, no follow anymore. Michael repeated what Stephen had said, slowly detailing word by word to ensure he was getting it all right. Rakul told you that you had to kill those men in the bar, 'cause they've been following us since the orc camp, tracking us for weeks. Yes. What? Rakul said to tell you it was okay. Stephen thought determinedly, but not after a slight flinch at the mental shout. Michael couldn't help but just sit back and blink as he processed the words. McCool's been talking to him. Michael happily realized that their conversation was still sort of logical to an outsider's point of view, and therefore he hadn't revealed that he could easily telepathically speak to him, but infinitely more importantly, what? He smited those poor bastards with his bare hands, boss, Reese said. You smited. Toxic agreed and spoke for the others, as they were all even more amazed that Michael apparently hadn't known. Elder, it was amazing. Rakul said to tell you to not be angry at me. Stephen thought at him again. Did he now? Michael nearly shrieked. Still not knowing that he was talking to Stephen, the others affirmed. Yes, it was crazy. Yes, he did. Come with me now. Both of you, Michael said telepathically and out loud to Stephen and Claire. He led them away from the others, and it took everything Michael had to not grab Stephen by the neck and drag him, throw him against trees, and thrash the boy to death while he limped, and Claire helped him along through the brush. After seeing the smoke literally, unironically, non-figuratively come out of his ears, the others backed away out of earshot, giving Michael the space he'd been after. Michael cast the translating spell on Stephen again, because he refused to repeat himself for Claire. Claire was already gripped by terror, and Stephen's confidence terrified Michael. When did Rakul talk to you? After song Claire teach. Could not remember words, but liked them. Claire read many times, but fell asleep to her singing. Rakul talk and dream. What was it like? Michael had to ask more questions just to keep his eyes from popping out of his skull. Scary. Rakul not scary. Just dream scary. I not know what happening. Wake up in a dark building. Dark, cool, quiet, soft, sleep place. Like building, sleep place in town. Wood building? The bed in the tavern. Yes, the wake there, but in big, dark, stone building. Claire not there, Merkul in Stephen fumbled and pointed at the rock Claire had helped him to. A chair, Michael supplied through his teeth. Recool in chair. Recool in chair next to sleep place. Tell me nay, tell me not to be scared. And just talk. What about? Everything? Michael could feel through Stephen's mind that it was hard for him to remember exactly what, or at the very least it would be hard to repeat. Claire, Mercule talk about you, Claire, about what you do, about him, about me. I tell him about me before, and with orcs, maybe not afraid for a while. Maybe not. I remember scary even when orcs gone, but remembering is not scary with Mercule. He say he likes me, that I could leave with people in town, but he want me stay with Claire. He told me talk to him, that he liked when I talked to him. Had said a little before, after hear singing at camp, but did not know name. Talked to them too, but only hear and dream, not see. Then more when Claire tell. His eyes switched without his consent, and sulfur bloomed from him as his teeth grew in his mouth. And you didn't say this before? You asked about before orcs, Stephen said in sudden defense. Thought knew about afterworks. He said you know things. Listen to you. It took everything in Michael not to slap Stephen. Not to just beat him to shit. The worst part was that Michael knew Stephen was being genuine, not mischievous or sarcastic. It had literally just slipped Stephen's mind. The number of times I've had that round with Lewis. You didn't say something? You didn't ask. He decided to slap Lewis. At the very, very least, his ass, in Stephen's place. Lewis was the one that Michael complained to, and if the warlock said a single thing sarcastic about this, Michael was going to leave the twink with bruises. You made a scene, and got every agent in town hunting us. Arresting 3, killing 5, and sending the rest of us scrambling to escape. Mercule said I'm not allowed to be angry about that, 'cause they were shitty anyway, or it was time they went to their eternal reward, and they're going to be successful rescuing the others. Yes. Michael sat on a tree and forced himself to breathe deeply for a while. When did you have this dream? Before you come? Just tonight? Yes. Stephen then paused, squinting and correcting himself. Days, pieces, again. Mixed up. Dream say Mercule confusing. Mercule say again. I forget when wake up. Make sense in sleep talks. No, right, and awake thinking. Time wrong. All time and no time at once. One dream, many nights. Michael growled, not to anyone but his own inner thoughts, even as it manifested outside. Michael spent many awkward and fraught moments forcing his rage, and therefore his demonhood back inside. I'm not angry at you. I'm angry at Mercule, Michael said finally, combing his hair and forcing himself to breathe and be honest about that statement. Thought you would know, Stephen apologized. Did not know until Mercule to tell you. All that work forcing in his rage was gone in an instant. He doesn't just talk. He doesn't just talk to anyone but you. Maybe he can talk to you because you're so fucking stupid. Because fucked up blurry visions are all you see in the first place. Michael then had to sit with that thought, pondering it for a moment and how it might actually be true, before he realized Stephen was the one confused now. He was still too enraged to care about how offended Claire looked on Stephen's behalf, but Michael did make an effort to lower his voice for nothing else than to keep the others from overhearing, even as he was still spitting his words.
Gods don't just talk. He doesn't talk to me like he talks to you. If he had the power to plainly speak to me like he speaks to you this whole time, I'm going to go insane with rage. I'm going to find a way to kill God.
I thought you were Cool's best friend.
He said that about me.
Michael almost asked before mentally slapping himself.
I am, but it's just hard to talk to God in heaven. It comes out wrong. I have to translate dreams. I can't understand. I don't know what he wants me to do, only that I am not doing what he wants me to do.
Stephen supplied what Mercoul had apparently told him in a near whimper. Make friends? Learn how to break? Kill people? He said it so quietly because he knew it was absolutely not what Michael wanted to hear.
But not how. It's hard.
Michael nearly broke and shouted again, standing to pace instead.
It sounds easy. It is not easy. I don't understand how you can talk to him so easily.
No how talk. Stephen carefully nodded to agree. And no easy work. It is hard, but... Stephen is new friend? Claire new friend? Do some good? He squinted his one eye and forced his maw into a smile to try and cheer Michael up. Michael desperately wanted to know if this was Stephen talking or Mercoul talking through him. And town is good learning. Smart people in town. He tried to suggest.
Who? Which ones?
Stephen nervously backpedaled and shrugged.
You don't know? What do they look like? What'd he tell you?
Mercoul no tell, no show, Stephen said apologetically and defensively. But Stephen sees smart people with orcs, witches, with fighters or no. Some witches from wilds, no fight them, trade with those. But witches from towns, fought a few. Not all smart are witches, but most from town. The smart people have books. Smart people are from town. No books in wilds. If no smart people... Stephen pointed to the Orcish dictionary that was still white-knuckle clenched in Claire's hands. You know where the books? Find smart people there?
Then what?
Make smart people teach you kill world? Stephen optimistically explained.
Well, we certainly can't stay in this town now. Anywhere but a library's gonna have way more defenses than we can take. We'll never be able to fight them off, and never have time to actually find anything. We can't take a library with us.
No raid. No fight.
Humans just go in. They'll kill us when they find out, but we won't.
Lie. Stephen said like he was happy to bring this idea to Michael, because poor Michael hadn't thought of it, so he was happy that he had. Again, only ever trying to be helpful. In this perfectly innocent tone of voice, Michael would have stabbed anyone else for being so insulting as telling him that blunt and obvious of an answer.
Oh yeah?
The demon could barely force out. He felt his forked tongue in his mouth again, even as he tried to calm and breathe. Be boring, Stephen explained. No play, no fight, no scream, no look over. When fight with lie, secrets, traps. Try not to fight, be boring. Even if fight lies, say no Mercoul, know someone else, no one. Take small hits, give big one. Lewis appeared in a puff of golden dust, making Claire scream. Michael didn't care over the sound of Lewis boredly informing him. They got them out, they're headed back to the base camp now. The corded dragon then sighed and admired his claws, as usual. Michael slowly looked back at Stephen, who was still nervously giving him an encouraging look. Claire, who was scared out of her mind, as well as embarrassed that Lewis had scared her, and was trying to hide it from the others, several yards away, pretending they weren't listening.
We will talk more about this when we get moving, Michael vowed.
Their smaller party reached the rest of the group in the early morning. With pangs of guilt and cold twinges of anxiety in her heart, Claire saw that some were injured and indeed, some were missing. While about half were keeping watch, the others were repacking what they were able to get out of town with and distributing supplies bought in town, each cart and traveling group equipped just in case they were chased further and had to split up. Soon after the Mlovan Khan, the rescue party, and the rescued flock members returned. The rescued were heavily injured, but Stephen looked on only observingly. Not guiltily, not curious or scared, as he had almost always been otherwise. Elder Michael checked in with the newly rescued and saw to it that they were bandaged up by the camp medics. He then addressed the group.
Spies from the orders of the Harpers tracked us here. Not through any fault of our own. These agents were cut down, but not before warning others who chased out the several others of you. I'm grateful that most of you were not discovered at all, and am proud that we were able to regroup without being connected to those that were compromised. The Lord has assured me that those we have tragically lost are already with Him in heaven, and their sacrifice allowed the rest of us a safe escape. We must retreat, but the Lord has already given me a heading into our next foray in the eternal quest. Once far enough away from this city, we will make ceremony to honor our fallen, and...
Michael turned slowly, glancing at Stephen and Claire.
And we must recognize those who have proven themselves today.
Michael lifted his hands to heaven, and most bowed their heads, though he indicated to the guards that he excused them for dutifully keeping their eyes peeled.
Lord, praise be you for allowing our repair, rest, and recovery, interrupted though it was. Praise be you for our ability to cut them out of this life, to give them that blow which would break them and conquer that which they hold most dear. Our family also felt loss, but by no means an equal loss. Though our own may no longer be with us or with our task, they join us in spirit as they become one with you. They have gone to that good place, the place which we all wish to go, that place where we strive to send all, and our enemies have gone to nothing. Praise be you for our fortune this far, and may this experience bring upon us new knowledge and wisdom to further serve you. I ask that you watch over us on this new lead, and this new leg of our journey starting out. May this new prospect bring us ever closer to you. Amen.
After a resounding agreement of amen, some sorrowful and some convicted, the flock continued to pack up and readied moving. At that time, several members who hadn't already known expressed their astonishment that Stephen was able to hobble instead of crawl, and that his name was no longer Blue. Though still feeling sick, Claire told them,
Elder Michael got me a dictionary. We were able to lie to some priests to help him.
Hearing his name, Michael made a point to make eye contact with Claire. The girl knew she should keep the other details to herself while Michael was still enraged. Claire herself felt even more sick as she realized there was something that Michael wanted to keep quiet.
Why didn't he want Stephen to be close to McCool? Why wasn't he happy about having another paladin at his side? Why was he angry instead of excited that Stephen had the power to smite?
Claire wished she didn't, but she already knew. It was what happened when a larger alligator appeared in the territory of another. It was what happened when a stronger fighter joined the gang. She wondered, with Stephen barely able to walk, barely able to talk, and still somehow already so much of a threat to Michael, if that had anything to do with why so few in their number could do what Stephen had.
Hey, it's your GM, Bailey Ford. I would like to thank our regular players, Darian, Matt, and Ian, Hip for our cover art, and Tabletop Audio for our background music. You can find us on Twitter at CIllithids, and thank you especially for listening.